Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, Israel begins its exit strategy from lockdown. Likud and blue and white party leaders get closer to forming a government, and Israeli cities get a taste of things on the wild side following weeks of lockdowns and closures. As of Sunday morning, Israel will be putting its coronavirus exit strategy into action. Over 13,300 people are diagnosed with coronavirus in the country, and the death toll has now climbed to over 170, with 156 in serious condition and 3,500 recovered. But for 2 straight weeks now, the new infection rate has nearly halved, and the finance ministry is warning of a total collapse over the horizon if the regulations do not get eased. So, with all of that in mind, the nationwide lockdowns will be easing.
בזכות האחריות שלכם, אזרחי ישראל, בזכות צוותי הרפואה הנפלאים שלנו, שנמצאים יום-יום ולילה-לילה בקו החזית, בזכות ההחלטות והצעדים שנקטנו בזמן, הצלחנו עד עכשיו במשימה זו.
So what are the new guidelines? Well, for starters, up to 30% of a workforce can now enter the workplace at any given time, up from 15% before. High-tech and specific other workplaces can return even more. Certain stores, like those that sell electrical or household goods, opticians, and street-side stores can also now return to work, but shopping centers, malls, and marketplaces will remain closed, as will hairdressers, beauticians, clothing and shoe stores, etc. Meanwhile, special education programs for up to 3 children are reinstated, and independent daycares can care after up to 3 families each. But in general, schools and kindergartens are still closed. Public transportation will be increased to an appropriate amount, although that's undefined. Sport in fixed pairs is allowed to up to 500 meters from home instead of 100 meters alone. The beaches are still closed. Up to 19 people can then pray outside, up from 10 people, and as long as they're abiding by the 2-meter distancing rules and are wearing masks. Weddings and circumcisions are also allowed with up to 10 people under the same regulations. And finally, plans to give additional aid and focus to the elderly and to small businesses is set to be developed. But is it too soon to ease restrictions? Many health experts say yes, as they warn that easing too quickly will result in the virus returning worse than before, and consequently, more lockdowns. Well, in 2 weeks' time, the government plans to review the effects of these recent changes and will either decide to continue lifting restrictions or to reimpose them. And now joining us with more on the latest regulations and the easing of restrictions is Dr. Zion Schlossberg, head of the Department for Special Populations at the Ministry of Health. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. Now, do you think Israel is ready to ease restrictions?
I think that it's been a long time since it all started. And the people in the Ministry of Health, specifically in the public of health, knows what they do. They see the whole picture. They know exactly when to ease and how to ease. And don't forget that we're heading towards a bigger problem when facing the financial areas in all our communities of living. So I think it's been done appropriately, a stepwise approach.
Do you believe that maybe there's this risk of Israelis getting an inch but taking a mile, so to speak, with the easing relations? So, for example, hitting the beaches even though they're not supposed to, flouting social distancing, not wearing masks enough, etc.
I think the population is very well behaved, and we saw through all of these weeks that people did exactly, let's say, like most of the public did exactly what they were told to do, with social distancing, with not going out, with going only for, buying food and necessities and medication or health issues. And I think that the public is very responsible, and I'm not familiar with any issues that the public will go ahead and break the whole band and so on. I think it will be done easy. It will be done stepwise, and I'm not afraid that the public will not behave well. Let's call it.
All right. So do you believe that these next 2 weeks are going to be successful, and that more restrictions will be eased in that time?
I'm pretty much sure so.
All right, so assuming then that we are successful in these next 2 weeks, that the infection rate continues to drop, which I think we can all say we are hoping will happen, what are the next steps? What will be eased next, and how so, do you suspect?
As you know, it's a complex picture. It's made of a lot of other, ministerial offices. So I'm not sure that we do have the answers, because everything will be based upon facts that coming from the areas itself, from how people will behave, or how we see the spread or the unspreading of the virus, and seeing a containment. So, and beside that, there are other factors like other ministries, like the Ministry of Finance, and whatever's going on, like in the whole state in terms of businesses and factories and so on. So it's a complex picture to say what will be in the next 2 weeks. But hopefully we'll see that the containment is well absorbed. People will behave as they suppose and as they are advised to behave. And I think that we'll see more easing in terms of allowing more people, to go to maybe to parks or beaches. But then again, as a matter of every step that we do will take at least 2 weeks to see the effect. So it depends on how it will be. But I think optimism is a well trait to stick by.
All right. Well, Dr. Schlossberg, thank you so much for joining us. Stay healthy, and we'll hopefully talk soon.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Speaking of easing restrictions, the Finance Ministry has now taken special measures to return Israelis to work, and they'll be starting with the least damaged market, high-tech. But the high-tech startups may not be as eager to get back to the office as anticipated. Finance Ministry officials have been warning that if things don't get back to normal soon, the country is heading for an economic disaster. And the high-tech industry has been given priority, not only because it's been the least affected by the shutdowns, but also because it's the financial powerhouse of the state and supports secondary employment. For example, the high-tech workers back in the office means more public transportation and work for cleaners, caterers, delivery services, etc. But if government officials are betting on the high-tech startups to just jump back into the swing of things as normal, they may be in for a rude awakening. High-tech was least affected because it's had the easiest overall transition to a remote working environment. And in fact, worker productivity has been largely unaffected by working at home. So employers, while understanding their responsibility to Israel's economic ecosystem, are not feeling pressured to leave the comfort of their couches just yet. Now, one regulation that has not changed and will not change anytime soon is the mandate for Israelis to wear face masks when outside the home. But crazy price gouging and limited supplies have caused panic and anger. So thankfully, Israel has stepped up to solve the problem, and ILTV's Nittany Manson has the story.
Masks work. In spite of early conflicting reports, countries with mostly mask-wearing populations have been the first to lower the curve of the coronavirus outbreak. And so Israel is now getting into the mask production game in never-before-seen ways. Currently in Israel, masks are not only mandatory when out in public, but police have also been patrolling to ticket those who break the mask rule. The problem, though, is that Israel, like everywhere else, has been battling a constant shortage of disposable masks. So that's how the government-sponsored mask project was born. Through the partnership between the Health and Defense Ministry and local Israeli experts, over 1 million high-density cotton face masks have already been produced. And best of all, the machine-washable and reusable masks retail for just about $2 a piece.
One thing that is nice with the cotton sheets that you can make any size you want. It's like making a shirt. So we have various sizes. We already have a size for kids, youth and adults, and we have a special size which is suitable for people that have beards.
While not as protective as the N95 filtered respirators, the masks are more affordable and much better than improvised cloth coverings, especially for religious men who sport beards as part of their beliefs. And finally, about 10 workshops, including in jails, have been included in the project.
Moving on to politics, it's been nearly a week since Israeli President Rivlin handed the mandate to form a coalition back to the Knesset. But sources from the Likud and the blue and white parties say that they're still in unity discussions and that a deal is, quote, imminent. Breaking news from Israel's Channel 12 alleges that significant progress towards a unity government is underway. In fact, Blue and White Party Chairman Benny Gantz reportedly told his associates that an agreement could be signed in as soon as 24 hours, something that would be welcomed news to most of the public, as it's much better than fourth elections. But what's changed? Just last week, President Rivlin was explaining his decision to return the coalition mandate to the Knesset, saying that a final deal between Gantz and Netanyahu was nowhere near completion. Well, it seems that one of the biggest divides between the parties may have been bridged. According to reports, Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Likud are now backing down from demands for laws that would undermine the High Court's future attempts to prevent him from serving as Prime Minister under indictment. That being said, Likud negotiators aren't entering into a deal that would serve the Prime Minister up on a silver platter, and they're warning Blue and White that sitting on or tabling legislation to kick Netanyahu out would immediately kill the talks. So, with the Knesset now looking to form a government, the question remains, will there be elections again? And does Netanyahu really even want to set up an emergency government at a time when Israel is seemingly successfully battling the coronavirus? Well, joining us on Skype is political strategist Zohar Tal. Zohar, thank you so much for being with us. Now, let's talk about the press conference held by Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday. He said that negotiations for the establishment of a unity government have not yet failed, and that he's even asking President Rivlin to extend Gantz's mandate. Why does Netanyahu continue to insist this?
Yeah, well, basically, Netanyahu has three options. One is to go to a unity government, which is probably the best for him. The other two options that we can talk about in a minute are a right-wing government of 61, or a fourth round of elections. Now, from Netanyahu's point of view, a unity government is the best option. The only problem is that he had already given too much to Gantz's Blue-White Party. So now he wants Gantz to settle for a bit less. If Gantz is willing to settle for a bit less, to give something specifically, they're talking about the justice and court system. If a settlement can be reached there will be a unity government, which from Netanyahu is the best option still.
All right, now, do you believe that Netanyahu wants to honor the agreement with Gantz? He wants to stay in the unity as well, that a 4-year term can actually be reached in such a unity?
Yeah, well, they haven't even started to talk about 4 years. They've started with 3 years because they know that the political ecosystem in Israel is very volatile. But
I guess the heart of the question is such a government
does.
stable? Is I think the heart of my question. Would a unity government with Blue and White and Likud be as stable as I think Israelis want it to be?
Yes, I think it will be perhaps even more stable than a right-wing 61 government, and I'll explain why. Because even though internally a unity government is problematic, it will work pretty well in the Knesset. However, if Netanyahu manages to establish a 61 right-wing government, then he will have a nightmare at the Knesset, because Benny Gantz is still the Speaker of the Knesset, and he will definitely make the coalition's life miserable.
All right. Now, worst case scenario, I think, is that we fall back to fourth elections. What do you predict occurring? What do you think the results of such an election would be? Would Gantz, as Speaker of the House, as part of this new blue and white faction, do you think that he would actually gain ground on Netanyahu, or do you think that the right wing and the religious bloc would be strengthened?
Yeah, well, the problem with fourth elections is that no one knows what will happen, and I think it possibly bad for both Gantz and for Netanyahu, because even though now the polls are smiling to the Likud party, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will stay this way. Unemployment rate is currently very high. The economic situation of Israel is not good, and it will definitely have some impact on Netanyahu's Likud party. As for Gantz, again, he split blue-white apart. A new round of elections will not be good for him as well. So who will benefit? Well, that's anybody's guess, but I guess it will be the extremists. The extreme right and the extreme left will benefit from a fourth round of elections.
You don't think that maybe Ya'alon and Lapid and Gantz would reconnect? Because I know that they've invited him to ditch Netanyahu and come back to his roots, so to speak.
Yeah, well, it is an option, but now, of course, now everyone will be more cautious. Now everyone will suspend one another and suspect one another. So it is. If a union occurs, it still be problematic, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they can gain more mandate than they have before.
All right, Zohar, thank you so much for joining with us.
Okay, thanks.
For weeks now, the Islamic Republic of Iran has been at the top of the news as the worst hit country in the Middle East by the coronavirus. But for the first time since the start of this pandemic, Iran has now been overtaken. Over 5,000 deaths and nearly 81,000 infections of COVID-19 have been reported in Iran. And a parliamentary report in Iran suspects that this number is just half that of the reality. But Turkey is now overtaking Iran as the most hard-hit nation in the region, with over 82,300 known infections and 1,890 deaths. Unlike in Iran, however, which is easing lockdowns in spite of rising numbers, Turkish officials are doing as most other nations are and are shutting its cities down. Drone footage over Istanbul shows desolate landscapes and empty streets as a recently imposed lockdown across 31 major cities has now been extended for 15 days. Also, all international flights, domestic travel, schools, bars, cafes, and mass prayer spaces have all closed. To stave off an economic collapse, though, many have continued going into work. Only those under age 20 and over age 65 have been instructed to stay home 100%. In other news, the annual Holy Fire ceremony has arrived, but to just a fraction of the typical crowds, as coronavirus lockdowns and social distancing rules keep the celebrations to a minimum.
بتختلف عن السنة الماضت لأنه كل سنة عن سنة هي بتكون أحلى وأحلى وأجمل. فهلا الفترة هاي بسبب الفيروس الوضع مسكر، الكنيسة مسكرة، الناس في بيوتها، فرح يكون صعب إنه الناس تحتفل في مظاهر العيد.
Every year as the Easter holiday comes to a close, tens of thousands of revelers, pilgrims, and tourists alike swarm the streets of Jerusalem at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre to receive and follow the Holy Fire as it's carried to churches across the region. The fire is considered a miracle, and it represents the resurrection of Jesus Christ. But this year, with Israel and the West Bank under practical lockdown, only a handful of masked officials and clergy and worshippers flouting distancing rules were present to receive the flame from the Patriarchy.
زي ما بتشوف الساحة يوم زي هذا بتكون ملان الساحة بالحجاج القادمين من مصر ومن مختلف دول العالم للاحتفال بالفصح المجيد في بيت لحم. السنة مش موجودين، وزي ما بتلاحظ إنه الساحة اليوم هي ساحة فارغة من المحتفلين بسبب وجود الكورونا.
Still, the ceremony, small as it was, passed by beautifully and with nearly all traditions intact, bells above the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and all. All right, now sometimes our dreams do come true, and in this case, I'm talking about Israeli singer Maya Bastilla, who very recently took part in a very special project. Together with Grammy Award-winning artist Kelly Clarkson, the two sing in Hebrew on a new track called I Dare You, and several other versions and verses of the song appear in various other languages, including Spanish, French, and Arabic. But joining us now to tell us all about this amazing collaboration, we have Israeli pop star Maya Bastilla herself. Maya, it is so great to have you here with us. Now, how did this collaboration with Kelly Clarkson begin?
Well, actually, it's a weird story for me. Like, it's really dream come true. My people here called me in the morning and said, "Do you care? Like, do you care to do a duet with Kelly Clarkson?" I said, "Oh yeah, I want to go to the moon also. So what?" So he was laughing and said, no, really, you are going to do a duet with Kelly Clarkson. I said, come on, this is the April 1st. Come on, I'm in a really not good day. Don't fool me. So after I knew it's really like going to happen, I was like, wow. I was like, it was blowing my mind, and I started to in WhatsApp teach Kelly Hebrew. Like at first, like she had like in our language there is resh, and she was like resh. I said no. Like it was a lot of takes to do it, and but it's you know, it's such an honor just to hear her sing in Hebrew, and this project made me more proud of my nationality, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, the project is amazing. Kelly's Hebrew is actually really impressive in the song, so I guess kudos to
Very
you.
impressive. I was like, wow.
It's very impressive.
She said to me, no, you are too kind.
No, it's actually really good. But so, you know, what were some of the best responses that you've gotten for the song so far?
Wow, actually, it's first place in all the radios in Israel right now. And all the people from Germany and from Morocco, like, you know, there are many people on the Instagram that speak with me and tell me, wow, it's amazing. Like to find a true, pure love, you know, no, like really, really pure love without any you know, politic and nothing, just to hear something and to love it, not because you're Israeli, a German or Arabic. It's just because of the song, and I think this is what the project is all about. You know, free love and pure, not without like to accept the other and the different, and.
So that's it. I wanted to actually talk about the message of the song. The song talks about unity, solidarity, and acceptance of people who are different. Now, do you think that we in Israel are living by these values, especially now during this crisis?
Oh yeah, I think people just even more because of this situation, like Corona situation, they are more polite. They are more. They are accepting the other like more. And not to speak badly about each other, and I think it's helping. Like the song came in the right place, in the right situation.
All right. Well, again, it's a beautiful song. Both the full version in Hebrew and the version in multiple languages, they're both super entertaining and incredible to hear. Maya, congratulations. It was great to have you.
Thank you very
much.
much.
So much.
I hope you like it. I hope you love it. And free love to everybody.
Thank you so much. Now, for our final story tonight, a city in Israel is beginning to deal with a very interesting problem, and it arrived on 4 legs. ILTV's Nittany Manson has the scoop.
With weeks of empty streets, Israel's wildlife has found new refuge in territories that have long been developed and taken for human use. But city officials and residents in the port city of Haifa find themselves in a more unique predicament, because it's not just wild birds, ibex, deer, and cats that are heading to the area.
קורונה בכלל, אנחנו רואים שהם מרשים לעצמם, בכל שעות היום הם מגיעים, ועכשיו עוד יותר, כי אנשים לא מסתובבים ברחובות, הם מגיעים והם הופכים לנו את הפחים. אני לא מדברת על הניקיון של כל מה שקורה פה, אבל זה חוסר מוגנות, אנחנו מרגישים ממש לא מוגנים, מפחדים לצאת, אפילו לשפוך את הפח, אני לא יודעת מאיזה כיוון החזירים יצאו.
That's right, wild boars are taking over Haifa, and the big pigs pose a real danger to the city's inhabitants, especially as they become more and more brazen. Before the virus-imposed lockdowns, the wild boars would come through Haifa overnight, traveling in family packs and rifling through trash and private properties. But now they appear to have no fear coming out in the day.
Because of the corona, they become more and more habitant. They used to move in the streets without any disruption.
With the lockdowns easing, however, people will slowly begin filing out into the streets again. So we'll just have to wait and see if the animals are here to stay or if they'll be driven out by the returning traffic.
All right, let's take a look at the weather forecast. We're starting to see that summer weather that we've been waiting for. Tonight will be pleasant with a low of 62 degrees Fahrenheit or 17 degrees Celsius. And tomorrow we're looking at a slight rise in temperatures to a high of 77 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 Celsius. And now before we go, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel.
Gum, patay daw, gum. Padarugan ako, gumo niya lang nabanggit.
Love the voices. All right, that is it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.59 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for watching.